Today's guest is Melvin Maureen II. He is the founder of Polished Technologies LLC, which is a nearly 10-year-old website and software development firm. And I've met Melvin through a mutual friend of ours, Tiffany Bailey. She's amazing. We both like her a lot, and I'm really, really glad she connected us. So thanks a lot for coming on the podcast today.
Oh, thanks for having me. And yeah, thanks Tiffany for connecting us. This is great too. But yeah, thanks for having me. This is a great invite. I appreciate it.
So for those who don't know you or haven't had a chance to just hang out with you and hear about you, talk about where you're from, who you are, and what you do.
Sure. So Melvin Moore second from Washington, D.C. area. I mean, the whole area. Montgomery County, Fairfax County, was born in D.C. and uh, educated here in college too. So yeah, and then Policy Technologies does software development, data management, as well as strategic IT staffing. Towards data management and software development and all of that. So we're kind of, I won't say we're jack of all trades of integrations, but that's kind of where we stick our talents, basically, of API integrations and any kind of surrounding software development.
So, and that's amazing because I'm in my area. I'm a software developer by trade. I mean, I'm a manager now, but that's what I loved was software
Right.
development. So I'm always enjoying meeting a fellow person on that journey. Well, rolling the clock back a little bit, as you're coming out of high school, what were your decision options for what you were going to do? Did you know what you wanted to do? Did you have to figure it out as you went?
I knew what I wanted to do since I was about 5 or 6,
Mhm.
and that was to be a journalist. And as I'm reading the Washington Post, and my family's reading the Washington Post, my dad's reading the sports page. For some reason, I just wasn't. I was that nerd that did not read the sports page as much. Um, You'll find that funny later. But I read the business section, which kind of gives you a little clue on where my brain was going at some point. Seeing my dad go on business trips and all of that, eventually, I'm sure I would have. I was like, I should be a business person, but then something just flocked to writing and photography and all that. How it all came together. I don't know what it was at 5 or 6 years old. I was like, I'm going to do that, and I just remember just that's just my trajectory. So school newspapers, um, high school and college. Went to Howard University for journalism. Um, Maryland had a great journalism program too, but I wanted to go to Howard just because my mom went to Howard. It was great. It was a HBCU. I grew up in the suburbs of DC, so it wasn't exactly, you know, uh, it was pretty multicultural, but I haven't, I'd never been educated or, at a full on, like, African American Black schools, right? So I wanted to just have that experience just because I've been in predominantly, Caucasian or white schools. So that's something that, it was just an experience where I'm like, yeah, everybody's talking about this experience. My mother was like, changed my life. And for me and a lot of people, it's like 4 years of just education without certain barriers, right? And those little barriers do matter. Those little omissions of history do matter. So that's why I chose to do HBCU over Maryland. Although Maryland has a really good journalism school. And I ran into those people when I ended up at the Washington Post after at an early age. So yeah. So how did I get to IT? You're probably going to ask.
Well, first, I mean, so how was it landing that first job? Was it pretty easy? You
Oh
just
my
applied?
gosh. No. So I wasn't the strongest writer out of my class. There were a hell of a lot better writers out there, and they're probably listening to this podcast like, hell yeah, we sucked. You sucked. We were great. But I was a great editor, a good editor, and I designed pages, and I had an acclimation for design and using dating myself Quark, and yeah, exactly. And then I had dabbled in HTML here and there just because I had nerdy friends, and my dad put a computer in front of me at age 7, something like that, and using DOS. So I was always writing. I was always doing something on a computer, and yeah, it ended up just being like a perfect situation to where I finally was like, this is my talent. Okay, where are the jobs for this? Oh, it's not as a competitive, it is, but it isn't as a competitive space as a writer in
Mm,
journalism, clearly. And I was good at it. And I had my first internship at Stars and Stripes, actually,
oh
Department of
wow.
Defense.
Yeah.
Yeah. My first design internship, excuse me. And then after that, following a girl, the typical college story of guy following a girl or girl following a guy. I was like, yeah, I'm going to apply to these two places because that's where she'll likely be. And I ended up getting a job in Cincinnati. So it was a hard lesson to learn that I wasn't good at something. So let me go find something better or something that
Mm,
I'm better at. Um, And then once I found it, it was easy after that point because then people started talking to me because they were like, "Whoa, you're aware of greed. These are actually pretty good designs." Da, 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 da. So I went on that interview. I kind of just flew there and was like, "I'm going to be here. Can I, can I just talk to you guys?" And he offered me the job right there.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. I was just like, that never happens. This is great. Yay. And I'm about to graduate. I took an extra semester. So thank God I did.
Wow. I love it when that happens, right? It is funny that our careers are a mixture of the right place at the right time, a little bit of luck, a little bit of who we might know sometimes as well.
Exactly.
Uh, and and you said yes, which means you took the risk, right, as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It was interesting. That job, the first internship really set that ball rolling. And I'm just walking down the hallway a little dejected because I don't know what the heck I'm going to do because I'm not the greatest writer in the world here. And the career counselor, Miss Carol Dudley, she was like, Melvin, I need you to go over here. We need to talk to these people. They're here. And there's not enough people here to talk to them. And they're talking about the copy editing design, the production side of the business, which maybe 3 years prior, I was a copy boy at the copy aide, excuse me, at the Washington Post. So running dummies up and down the stairs back in the day where there's paste up and,
Yep.
there's people composing room and all of that, where the system replaced a lot of our shifts. So I got to learn production and I got to learn, and next thing you know, I'm like, wait, I'm that person now. That's crazy. And then it just all kind of clicked. So it was very right place, right time, very stars aligning, God aligning, whatever you believe in, right? Like just everything kind of aligning. And there's that weird system that replaced some shifts. I ended up working for that system later on in life.
Wow. And then so that's Cincinnati. So now
Yep.
so now you're in, a different state,
Yep.
away from home. What brought you back to the DC area?
I wanted to work back at the post. That was my dream since I was 5 and 6. And here we are. So I like I said, I used to work there, so I knew the people. I don't think they knew what I did at that time,
Hmm.
and I just kept going back, asking for lunches. Same similar strategy that I did when I got when I went for the job in Cincinnati, which I feel like a lot of people should do more. Like if you want to go to somewhere and you know where you want to work, go fly there. Just figure it out. Most of the time you can do that. But that was something that I was just like, I'm just gonna keep trying, keep trying, keep knocking on that door, and there was an opening. They interviewed me in advance. Then there was an opening, and here we are back at home. The first time I returned back home.
Oh, first time.
Yes. So
What made you leave the second time? Was it a girl as well?
no, not this time. Actually, it might have been the opposite effect, right? I was like, I gotta get out of here. No, but it was actually, I don't know. I hit a peak at the post. It was a dream job. I mean, for real dream job for a 5 6 from the 6-year-old version of me, right?
Mhm.
And then I got it at 25, 26, and it was a very now what do I do kind of looming over me. Because it's just like it's and nobody likes hearing that. Oh, you're about to buy a house. You got your dream job. Why are you unhappy? And it's like, well, I got it too fast. I don't know. Like, no, I wouldn't say it was fast. Don't get me wrong. It was hard work, but it was very like, oh crap, what do I do now? So I started what was Mooring Designs, what is now Paulus Technologies in 2008, and just doing web design, web development, maybe some logos here and there, stuff like that. And then that got me down another different rabbit hole when I learned Flash, and then they were teaching us in the basement at the post because the next logical step of page design, of course, is web design, right?
Right.
And they were teaching us CSS and JavaScript, and I just ate it all up because again, my dad put a computer in front of me when I was 6. So of course my brain was already wired to be like, I want to learn more. And I just kept going more and I ended up learning Java. I'll never do that again. And it was just like, no, I actually learned ActionScript first, if you remember
Oh
that from
yeah, I remember ActionScript
Flash.
for Flash. Yes.
Yeah. ActionScript 2 was easier than 3. And then I was like, thank God this thing went out of style because I don't even remember it anymore. Thank God. So as I'm at the post, I'm starting this trajectory here. And I was like, well, now I found my now what? So what do I do now? I don't want to go back to school. I'm like, already, I've already learned this. How do I do this? So I tried to find a happy medium. And that, again, that system that replaced a lot of shifts when I was a copy boy was hiring for
Hmm.
someone to train people, which is something that I was doing in Cincinnati and Washington Post here and there, training people or helping people with the system. It was crazy. The IT department loved me because they didn't have to come upstairs to the newsroom as so often because I was like helping our coworkers here and there. And so it was straight up training, rolling out, um, finding the customer, finding out what the customer wants, reporting it back to the developers. Sounds like a business analyst job, although I did not know that's what that was called back then.
Hmm.
Because I'm coming from journalism, I had no clue that part, and some business background, here and there with my parents and family businesses and all of that stuff that sprouted up throughout the area. But so it's in my blood, but I just never thought I would be doing that for IT, right? And so when I took that job, it was a leap of saying I'm leaving this career, this rock that I've looked to and clung on to for year for what it was almost 15 years. I mean, if you want to add up all the years
Yeah.
when I'm five, I mean, it's a long time. But yeah, it was a hard leap, but I did it. I was like, I gotta go. Like, there's no other choice, and I can't look back. Once I leave the post, I'm leaving journalism because I already know they don't like gap years. So that was it. The
Wow,
end.
and what a great foresight because print journalism is not really there anymore, right? I
Right.
mean, it's still there fractionally,
Yeah.
but it's come down a long way from where it used to be.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then the various buyouts and all of that stuff, I kind of dodged a few hatchets and bullets there. And shout out to my posties that are probably listening to this too. We adore you. Sorry, but yeah, I had to go. But yeah, I just my ambitions for what I wanted more in designs to become. And we also had me and my cousin and a friend of ours. We had a startup that we wanted to do. We just went in. So with that, I learned API development and kind of had to like get acclimated to that and or learning that I did not know certain things and I needed to hire a team and leading a team and the project management that we learned at the Washington Post were the same kind of project management I needed to learn here.
Hmm.
So with that, rolling out the systems with CCI for about 4 years, traveling around the world, literally, which, because it was a newspaper software that was a Danish software. Gannett used it, but also so did some French companies, German companies. My first travel gig. I mean, they hired me April. We trained until August, and then my first job, correction, my first like assignment, I guess you could say, was in Brazil.
Wow.
I was just like, huh. Well, this is a switch from the Washington Post that I was just at in March. So it was a great transition, and then it was time to go there. It was time to come back home. And then yeah, no, that was a girl. That was my wife.
Okay.
Came back home, got engaged to my wife, as well as got a job at Aquilent, a company called Aquilent, and it was only like for a year, basically. It didn't, yeah, it wasn't the greatest situation because I wanted to actually like do what I do. You know what I mean? It was nice Drupal training just to get me back home, yay. And then once I left there, it was just like, well, I got to do something now. So maybe a year later, I changed it to Polish Technologies and away we went. Honestly, just straight up doing web design, web development, API development, and then some just logo designs, poster designs, just whatever we needed to do at this point, just to get something. Then I caught an eye of a guy, and he kind of showed me some ropes on government contracting, and I was doing BD for other companies for a little while doing web design, web development, and then after a certain point, I said, okay, it's time for me to focus on polish only. But
Mhm.
those people that have helped me, learn a little bit more, we work together still. So it's really cool.
Wow, I love that story. I mean, I can feel the entrepreneur spirit just pouring off of you. You know,
Appreciate that.
it's, it takes a certain type of enthusiasm
Mhm.
to be willing to do that, and you have to really love what you want to do for it
Yes.
to be successful. And you're exhibiting that here so well. And so,
Appreciate
man,
that.
man, if I wasn't in government, I'd come see if I had a way to work for you. I mean, it's exciting. It sounds very exciting.
Ooh.
So, you've had an interesting journey. And when we look back over that journey, what's something you wish just wasn't done the way it is? Something in the industry at large, or just the way companies do business, or whatever it might be. And I'm a caveat to say, you and I, Melvin, we may not have the most efficient way that should be changed today, but let's talk about it. What's something you see that the industry at large should just evaluate?
I would say this whole thing about, I mean, it's great to specialize in certain areas, but forcing maybe 20 somethings to specialize so harshly, especially now, as I mean, things are, we were pretty scatterbrained in our generation, and I'm pretty sure Gen X, Xennials, we're pretty scatterbrained in our generation, right? And so, of course, you're on your third career. I'm on my second ish, maybe third, really, technically, given the training stuff. But yeah, so it's like that's great, but I wouldn't be. There was certain gaps in this story where I wouldn't be able to find a job for my skill set. Let's take that little sliver of time between the Washington Post and the tech company CCI, now Steeple Systems. There was like I was applying for like web design jobs, but I didn't know enough. But I knew too much for certain other jobs, right? And it
Mm,
was just like, but I didn't know enough for them. I feel like more people need to take a chance on people. That would be the thrust of to answer your question. I think people need
uh,
to take more chances on people, whether they have the skill set completely or they have too much skill set, but they want to do something else. Or on the interview, they kind of run off about something else. I like that. Now I'm an entrepreneur, like you said. I'm somebody that thinks like a business. Like if I'm going to hire somebody, a kid that I have a kid in mind, great developer. He's amazing. Codes like he's 30 something. Works with teams, leads teams like he's 30 something, 26. Can't fit.
mhm.
Fits with me because I
Yeah.
know I know what I'm looking at. I'm looking at myself, right? And it's just so ironic though. I'm just like, oh my gosh, you said the same things I say in that way, like when I was like, worried about the impression I made or whatever. And I'm like, don't worry about that. You know what I mean? So I like mentoring people in that way, whether they're younger than me, older than me, just trying to find their way, whatever. That's something that I'd love to do, but that's something that I keep finding. There's always a specialization that's so harsh and so like what's the word I'm looking for, there's so many that is a barrier, there are barriers around it, right? And yeah, I don't think that's necessary for everyone. It's not a one
Yeah.
size fit all thing. Like I said, I think it's great that they're structured, don't get me wrong. If I need a project manager that's only focused on Drupal or an Amazon Cloud Drupal instance, whatever. I'm gonna find that person. Great, yeah. But hiring the software developer that also wants to be a project manager, I feel like a lot of people don't like that. I'm like, that's kind of wrong. You're not gonna hire somebody really great, honestly.
Yeah, and you don't want to squelch their innovation, right? If they're coming with ideas and ways like excitement about how they can contribute, and as you know, I mean, there are lulls in everything we do. And if you could fill the lull with another passion or another idea or another contribution to a company, right? You are important. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, I love that. I love that. And it also, like you said, that specialization is driven somewhat by the I'm gonna get myself in trouble. The education mafia,
Mm-hmm.
the old gatekeepers of IT,
Mm-hmm.
who are like, there's only one way to get educated on this, and then you got to start at the lowest level possible and work your
Right.
way up through the grind. You got to do the crummiest jobs. If you don't do that path, you're not legitimate. And I don't think that's true anymore. I think
No.
the mechanisms we have for learning are with the internet are just amazing.
Yep.
And the ability we have to develop stuff on our own machine. There were times you couldn't build a website on your own computer, right? It just
Right.
wasn't possible. You can do all of that now. So easy to do this stuff that I don't ever want to say to somebody, oh, you didn't get the right certification.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, really? If they can do it, or even if they are motivated, frankly, I'll hire somebody who's just motivated. If you're
And that's the
motivated, you're going to learn it.
yeah. And that's a frustration about staffing in general that I have in just my own, not to shoot myself in the foot as we're doing pretty well in that area right now. But the specialization there was like, I mean, they actually, the prime or the stakeholder, whoever it is, commercial or government, are like, no, we need this, and we want this specific certification. I'm like, okay. And if like this great candidate has everything but the certification, it's hard to tell somebody, yeah, that's not it because you missed this one little mark. I mean, I know it's the nature of the beast, but it's still hard for me to hear that one of my recruiters had to say that or I had to say that or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
It's a risk averse culture when they say
mhm,
something like that, right? They're
yep,
not willing to. trust that you're going to find the best candidate for them,
Yeah. And that's
irrespective of,
not
yeah,
and that's not always true. You're going to find somebody. I mean, I like working that takes those kinds of like small risks like that. Like, and
yeah,
so far, I've been really lucky to be able to work with a lot of people like that. But I know that, and a lot of and again, there's some times where it's just this is what it is. Sorry, I can't do that. But I'm very fortunate to have some of those clients and stakeholders who are just like, you know what, they don't have this exactly, but they're cool. Let's figure it out. We like the interview. I'm like,
yeah,
okay. And if they knock out the interview clearly, especially the technical, there's nothing to talk about. You just need to get the cert. We'll pay for the cert, most likely.
right. Yeah. Just
Maybe I shouldn't have
alternative
said that.
ways. Yeah. Those alternative ways to meet that sin. But yeah, I think that's something that more companies need to think about is uh, by forcing certain specializations, then you've eliminated opportunity and also opportunity for yourself. You could be eliminating a very, very qualified candidate who's going to do good work for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So speaking of things I don't know how to solve, it's just, but that's something that I think is a barrier.
Yeah. It's a good one. We should definitely get on that. So, Melvin, what's coming up next for you at Polished and just in general?
So we are just now part of the, what is it? We just got word that we are now part of the Catalyst. No, not the Catalyst one. We already have that one. Our per H investor Catalyst Hub now. So we're part of that now, which kind of is a good sign that HHS is kind of open. They kind of had to close their communication doors a little bit, so it's kind of a good sign that maybe they're opening up a little bit more. So that's exciting right there. As we do focus on healthcare IT as well. And then our partnership with Optum has been really cool. So I'm very happy about that. And then on a personal note, going to Disney World now. We're finally taking my son to Disney World. We're excited about that in a couple of weeks. So
That's
yeah,
awesome. No, that's a biggie, right? That's a biggie.
right.
We gotta
It's a yeah. We got the plans. I'm just like, as long as we walk away with some lightsabers, I think we'll be okay.
well, those big moments are important for our children for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, Melvin, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your story and your enthusiasm for what you do. And I just can't wait to interact with you and see what happens for you.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate the invite to the podcast. Yeah.